What is going on, everybody? What is going on, the Catch fam? My name is Jon Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into another 2022 fantasy football mock draft. In today's video, we will be conducting a 10-team mock draft through the ESPN platform. This will be a full PPR style mock at the third overall selection. If you guys do enjoy today's content, be sure to hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. We put out free daily fantasy football content, and at the moment we are doing a free subscriber mock draft nearly every single night at the channel, so be sure to join our Discord as well to get our mock draft invites and updates on when we are drafting. And without further ado, let's hop into another 2022 fantasy football mock draft. All right, so sitting at 1.3 overall, with that third overall selection, I'm going to be selecting the best available running back, whether it's JT, CMC, or Austin Ekeler. Those would be my top rated RBs. And then moving into the second round at pick 18, I'm going to go with the best available receiver. And that's really in 10 and 12 team formats, and even 14 team formats for the most part. What I like to do throughout nearly the entire draft is just start with a running back. If you have a later selection in the first round, then maybe start with a receiver. But overall, switching between both of those skill positions, running back and wide receiver, to just fill out a very consistent roster. And throughout the draft, we'll keep an eye on the tight end position as well as the quarterback position, and just select a good value tight end and quarterback when they fall to us at the right time throughout the draft. And I really think that just builds the best overall consistent team in league formats that are not 8-team formats. So we'll go with an RB at 1.3, and then we'll target the best available receiver at the 18th overall selection. So JT is taken at 1.1, CMC is gone at 1.2. So we'll go Ekeler here. We'll get our RB1, and it's a great way to start off the draft. We've got our RB1 solidified, and we'll just look for the best available receiver with that 18th overall selection. Then moving into the third round, we'll bounce back to the running back position. If at any point throughout the draft we're looking at available running backs, for example, in the receiver position just holds that much more value, then we'll double up at receiver, and then the coming rounds go back to a double RB. So we'll see how things play out here. Cooper Kupp goes at 1.4, JJ goes at 1.5, Devontae Adams off the board at 1.6, and we'll kind of look ahead here to the wide receiver position. Looking at that 18th overall selection, very likely that Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle are all available. For me, out of that tier, I like Mike Evans the most. He's a little bit lower rated through ESPN's platform, but I think Mike Evans is a great selection at 18 overall. He is certainly not lasting to 30 overall in most of our subscriber mock drafts. I also like Keenan Allen, just two very consistent veterans who would be great wide receiver ones for our roster. One note here is we already have Austin Ekeler on this team, so maybe we don't want to go too heavy into Chargers players, but let's face it, that offense is going to be extremely good, extremely explosive this coming season. All right, so looking back at the draft here, we've got Jamar Chase gone at 1.7, Dalvin Cook gone at 1.8, Joe Mixon gone at 1.9, Derrick Henry falls out to 1.10, and that'll wrap up the first round. Going into the second round, we've got Najee Harris gone with the 11th overall selection. So a good mix of receivers and running backs. A little bit of a run at receiver with Kupp, JJ, Adams, and Chase off the board. Then bouncing back to their running back position with Cook, Mixon, and Henry gone. And then to start the second round, Najee Harris gone. Debo goes at 12 overall. So we'll just kind of sit back and see what happens. I see that Alvin Kamara has been moved up a little bit in rankings. Doesn't look like he is going to face that suspension this year. It looks like that will move into next season, so we'll kind of see what news we get with that, but it does look like ESPN has moved Kamara up slightly in their rankings overall. All right, so Nick Chubb gone at 2.3. We'll take a look at tight end. You got Mark Andrews ranked at 20, Kelsey ranked at 24. In 8-team leagues, I've really been targeting either one of those tight ends, but in 10 teams, I like to kind of move in to that later tier between Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox and just get a mid to late round tight end, and even maybe two tight ends overall. I think it works more to your advantage in 10 and 12 team formats to just stack up at running back and receiver and get as much value as possible. And like I said, just let a mid to late round tight end fall to you a little bit later. And same goes for the quarterback position. All right, Stephon Diggs gone here at 14 overall. Kamara's gone at 15 overall, and Tyreek Hill gone at 16 overall. So CeeDee Lamb sitting here, and he is still available after Aaron Jones is off the board at 17 overall. I still really like Mike Evans, but I'm going to go ahead and go CeeDee Lamb here, and we'll see how the second round shapes out. I think in full PPR, CeeDee Lamb is going to have a phenomenal year. I think he's just going to be very consistent and peppered with targets throughout the entire season. So we'll see how the second round fills up here. And then looking at that 23rd overall selection, I mean, I don't think DeAndre Swift will fall out, but we should have a choice of a very good running back. I mean, I love James Conner at 23. If you guys follow the channel closely, you guys know that James Conner has been one of my favorite RB2 for fantasy rosters this season. If he's not available, I still like Saquon Barkley a lot, bringing that high ceiling at the RB2 position and some PPR upside as well, even if he's going to bring some boomer bust potential to the table as well. All right, Leonard Fournette gone at 19 overall, Keenan Allen gone at 20 overall, and we will move into the third round with Saquon Barkley off of the board. So Travis Kelce selected at 22 overall as well. So DeAndre Swift does fall out. This is a tough choice for me. Swift or Conner is actually really difficult for me. We'll go DeAndre Swift. I've got him slightly higher in rankings overall, but it's no disrespect to James Conner whatsoever. I would have loved either selection there, but with Swift falling out, I'm going to go Swift at 23 overall. So Javonte's taken at 24 overall, and we'll look ahead to pick 38 as Mike Evans and Mark Andrews are off of the board. Looking at available receivers, Mike Williams is a player who I'd really like to land in a lot of drafts, regardless of if I have Austin Eckler already on this team or not, but we might be able to land. I mean, there's quite a few receivers who should be available at that time. And then looking ahead, we've got the 43rd overall selection. So if Zeke falls out, I would love to land Zeke there. If he does not, then ETN would be my next target. We'll continue to keep an eye on the quarterback position. Still no QBs gone in this draft so far. Jalen Hurts is a top target for me, and I think he's a really good target in 10-team leagues as well. Currently ranked as 89 overall through ESPN's platform, so we'll keep an eye on Hurts, and then we'll just kind of keep an eye on that next tier. For me in 10-team leagues, I don't think you necessarily have to reach for quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, even Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, all of those players bring a really consistent ceiling and a really consistent floor to your fantasy roster on a weekly basis. And you can always throw in Trey Lance towards the end of the draft for a little bit of upside fun as well. All right, so James Conner gone at 27, Jalen Waddle gone at 28. We've got two more selections here in the third round before we move into the fourth round. T. Higgins is off of the board and one more selection left. If you guys are enjoying today's content, be sure to hit that like button down below and hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. I forgot to mention during the intro, if you guys have any mock draft requests, please let me know in the comments down below, whether it is a pre-recorded video like this one or a live subscriber mock draft through the Sleeper app. Please let me know in the comments down below, and we will get that put on the schedule for you. All right, we'll see what happens here at the end of the third, moving into the fourth. Still lots of good players sitting around. I would imagine that Josh Allen's going to go sometime between the end of the fourth into the beginning of the fifth if he's not taken before. So we should start to see some quarterback action coming shortly. AJ Brown finishes out the third round as we approach the fourth round here. And I'm just kind of sitting back at this point, not really panicking. We've got a strategy in place, and I know that it's going to work and build a great roster overall. Cam Akers is gone at 4.1. So let's just take a look here. We're due to draft a receiver. I mean, you got a lot of consistent players, especially in PPR, sitting here. DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Scary Terry, and Deontay Johnson. Like, all those guys have somewhat questionable quarterback play, but they're all going to get the targets that they need in full PPR formats to have very productive fantasy seasons, especially behind a wide receiver one. Mike Williams brings a little bit more of that boomer bust on a weekly basis to the table. A high risk, high reward type player. You just gotta love the potential ceiling that he brings, and he might even be available in the fifth round if we wanted to pivot from running back. So sitting here, man, I'll go with Deontay Johnson as our next receiver. I'm not really worried about the quarterback play for the Steelers this season. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be great, but I'm not worried about Deontay Johnson's fantasy output because of the quarterback play. In other words, I still think he's going to see a consistent amount of targets. At the end of the day, that is your wide receiver 8 in full PPR last season. All right, so if we wanted to double up at receiver here and then go RB in the coming rounds, we could go Mike Williams here and get a high ceiling player, because really when you look at our two receivers here who do share the same bye week, CeeDee Lamb and Deontay Johnson really just bringing a consistent floor overall in terms of PPR value. But if we wait on RB, we'll probably miss out on Travis Etienne. Let's take a risk here. Let's go Mike Williams, and just note that we need to go running back at pick 58. I just think overall for this roster, Williams would be a really nice flex player, and we'll just keep a heavy eye on Travis Etienne, but I'm not quite sure he's going to fall out here. I don't think he's going to, as J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall, and Antonio Gibson are all off of the board. But I will note, and there goes Etienne as well, a big run at running back to start the in the middle of the 5th round here with Dobbins, Hall, Gibson, and Etienne. So looking at his ADP, I took a chance there. He's ranked at 53 overall. There's a chance he falls out to 58, but we'll survive here. I mean, I think Eckler and Swift is a really nice start to the running back room. If Elijah Mitchell falls out, I'll take a chance on Mitchell at 58 as an RB3. If he does not, I think we can pivot away from running back for a few rounds, especially, I mean, I think Eckler and Swift is a really nice ceiling with those two guys, but we'll be targeting guys like AJ Dillon, James Cook, James Robinson, Edmonds, Rashad Penny, or Kenneth Walker, whoever you want to roll the dice on. Damian Pierce, who I absolutely love in later rounds, Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, and then we'll take a look at Darrell Henderson and Tyler Algier. So I think there's plenty of late round running back value. We might as well add Tony Pollard, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson to that list as well. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of depth at receiver. So we'll just take a look at what happens here and really go with the best available players, whether it's running back or receiver. This might be a point in the draft where we could go ahead and look for some value at tight end or quarterback. If I can click on quarterback, there we go. Just Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen off of the board. So we could potentially get our pick at quarterback as well if we wanted to, but I'm not quite sure that we need to. If Kyle Pitts is sitting around, he's kind of intriguing, but I think the best thing to do here is just continue to load up at running back and receiver. I still think we can get pretty solid value at tight end and quarterback later on. All right, sitting here in the 6th round, we got Brandon Cooks, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Thomas gone. Kyle Pitts is selected at 54 overall. Hollywood Brown gone at 55 overall. I really like Metcalf. I really think he's the best available player. Justin Herbert is also very intriguing here. I don't know both of them are going to last through picks 56 and 57 though. So part of me wants to just go ahead and take a swing at QB and get it over. And there goes Herbert and Metcalf. So both the players that I was looking at are gone. Let's take a look at running back. I think Elijah Mitchell is just the best pick for this roster as a whole. So let's go with Elijah Mitchell. Let's get back to our initial strategy, RB receiver, RB receiver. We'll take Mitchell off the board, but pick 63 is kind of interesting. We could quote unquote reach against ADP and get our QB1 in Jalen Hurts. We could get our tight end 1 in Dalton Schultz, but I don't quite know if we necessarily need to. Looking at receiver, we could add a really good player at the position as well. Hunter Renfrow or Darnell Mooney are probably the two best players in my opinion on the board, so I think we'll go with one of those two players. And then in the 8th and 9th round, start to take a harder look at quarterback and receiver. I'm not quite sure that Jalen Hurts is going to fall out to 78. Lamar Jackson already off the board in the 7th round, so that means that Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts are the top-rated quarterbacks, but I'm fine with Joe Burrow and a swing at Trey Lance in later rounds of the draft. So let's go with Darnell Mooney. He was tied for the 10th most targets in the league last season. I really think our receiver room is looking solid for a full PPR squad. CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, and Darnell Mooney. So we've got 3 receivers who bring that really nice, consistent PPR value with Lamb, Johnson, and Mooney on this team. Then we've got a nice flex type player, a nice boomer bust, high ceiling, a little bit of a risk type player in Mike Williams. The running back room looks solid enough for me. Eckler, Swift, and Mitchell will continue to get some depth at running back throughout this draft as well. At the moment, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bench spots left. I would estimate that about 3 of those are going to be at least handcuff or committee running backs, or just good late round value running backs overall. Looking at the tight end position, I'm happy with this tier of, Dalton Schultz is gone, just if you guys did not see, at 64 overall, but I'm happy with this tier of Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox, Gesicki, Ertz, and Freiermuth. If I can land 1 to 2 of those players, I'm fine. I would imagine Hawkinson's going to go before we're ready to land a tight end. But like, if I can go out and get a Dallas Goedert and a Dawson Knox, I'm extremely happy, right? If I only land a Dallas Goedert, I'm still happy. If I end up with a Hunter Henry and Dawson Knox, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. So I think there's plenty of value sitting at the tight end position in later rounds. All right, Hunter Renfrow gone. I mean, I will note that Hunter Renfrow is a player that I absolutely love in full PPR formats, but he's already gone here. Mooney and Renfrow are 2 kind of mid to late round tier guys, depending on how many teams you're drafting with. Here in a 10-team mock in round 7 that I think hold a ton of value at the receiver position. But let's take a look ahead here at the running back position. We've got picks 78 and 83 coming up, and I'll make a note here. AJ Dillon ranked as 115 overall through ESPN's platform. I'll just say that in our subscriber mock drafts, he is going way earlier than that. So I don't have a problem necessarily going out and reaching against his ADP in these mock drafts. So we might be coming up on an AJ Dillon selection shortly. So Kyler Murray gone at 68. Jalen Hurts is gone at 69 overall. He is no longer going to be a potential member of this roster, but we will survive. 70 overall, we got Devin Singletary off the board, followed by Cordero, Patty, and Cheese. And we'll just kind of sit back here. Now my top target at quarterback becomes Joe Burrow, and he is another player similar to Jalen Hurts who very often gets drafted against his ADP. Just a fantasy quarterback who players want on their roster, but I do like pairing him with a Trey Lance. So I think the most important thing for this roster is to start to identify who we want at quarterback pretty shortly here, but also get a RB as well. I mean, if you look at the top projected players, Burrow's starting to creep up there, so he might be a player that we want to target, but I also really like the value in Devonta Smith sitting here. I mean, we've got 4 receivers, so we're in a pretty good spot. I think probably the best move overall here is to go either Burrow and then Devonta Smith, or Burrow and AJ Dillon. There's still a chance that Dillon falls out, but the issue here is if you go to the top rated running backs, he's starting to creep in. I think there's a chance he falls out to the 10th round. But the other thing is when I'm conducting these mock drafts, like I said, I kind of put an asterisk next to AJ Dillon if we land him that late, because realistically, in both our sleeper subscriber mock drafts and Underdog drafts, he's just not going that late. So it's nice for the mock draft feel, but overall, I don't know if it's necessarily realistic. All right, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Chase Edmonds, Dak Prescott, Adam Thielen, Tom Brady off the board. So with all of that happening, let's take a look at the 2 teams in front of us. One has got Patrick Mahomes and one has got Lamar Jackson. So I don't think we need to go ahead and select Burrow. Let's land Devonta Smith here, and that might finish out our wide receiver room. I think it does so in very good fashion with CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Mooney, and Devonta Smith. And then I think we'll go ahead and we'll just get quarterback out of the way and go with Joe Burrow. But part of me really wants to go AJ Dillon. Let's go Joe Burrow. Let's get QB out of the way. I'm perfectly happy with that selection. And then we'll start to look to the running back position with AJ Dillon at 98. And we're going to have to land a tight end pretty shortly here, but I think there's plenty of value. Although I do really like Goddard, who is the top rated tight end, but we'll see what happens here. I think we'll be able to piece together a very nice roster. These are really your money picks here. These last 4 picks, those last 5 picks or so, right? That's really when you get your money picks, you really end up being the key players for your roster, in my opinion. So lots of value here in the 9th round. We got DeAndre Hopkins, CEH, Joe Burrow, Drake London, TJ Hawkinson, and Kadarius Toney off of the board with 4 more selections left. Ramondre Stevenson is gone, and we're creeping up into the 10th round. Damian Harris now gone, so we got both of those Patriots running backs off of the board back to back. For me, like I said, AJ Dillon's probably got to be our top target at 98, but Goddard's another player who I don't know, it's going to be tough. If I can land Goddard at 103, I'm going to be really happy. And then after that, we'll probably just swing back to going RB receiver. You know what? I'll probably just finish out at running back. There's one more receiver who I'd like to land on this team, and that'd be Tyler Boyd, just because he's so incredibly cheap. And, we kind of get that semi-stack with Joe Burrow, although Chase and Higgins obviously get the bulk of value out of that stack. But Boyd, especially in full PPR, is a player that I love to target overall. Just such a cheap player, and he brings so much consistency in PPR leagues as well. So we'll keep an eye on Boyd as our final wide receiver. Also like Chris Olave or taking a chance on Treylon Burks. So in a lot of these mocks where I go and get a guy like Joe Burrow who's a little bit more stable in terms of passing the football, I like to pair him with Trey Lance, or I have in the past, but Trey Lance's ADP is just moving up. He goes at 90 overall in today's mock, so ahead of Cousins, Carr, Stafford, and Wilson. Rodgers was already selected, but we were seeing a lot of mocks where he was being selected after the likes of Rodgers, Stafford, Wilson, Brady, Carr, Cousins. So, after that wild preseason performance he put on, he is definitely starting to move up in ADP. So, and Rodgers was just selected, so he was selected ahead of Rodgers in this mock draft. My mistake. But yeah, Trey Lance, just a hot name in fantasy. If he's a player that you want on your squad, you're probably going to have to target him a little bit ahead of ADP, and I would imagine that most of these mock draft platforms are going to adjust his ADP within the next coming weeks. And Trey Lance and Jalen Hurts are probably the two quarterbacks who are really moving up in ADP in general. All right, AJ Dillon is off the board. We get sniped here. He's gone. So let's go ahead and secure that value at tight end. Let's get Dallas Goedert off of the board. And really what we're going to have to do here with Eckler, Swift, and Elijah Mitchell sitting at the running back positions, we're just going to have to load up at whatever value is available. So I would love to see Tony Pollard fall out here, and he does not. He's taken right off the board. Kenneth Walker's gone. James Cook is gone. So a lot of that late round running back value that I like is already gone. So I think that James Robinson or Rashad Penny are probably the best choices here. Am I in love with them? No, I'll go Rashad Penny because I do think if he's healthy, he's the guy. But at the same time, I'm really confused by Seattle's backfield right now. But really, I think between James Robinson and Rashad Penny, you've got just as good of a dart throw as the other. So looking at this team overall, and just to note, I'll probably go ahead and target Dameon Pierce and/or Darrell Henderson and Tyler Algier to finish this draft, with maybe Tyler Boyd sprinkled in there as well. I think what we need to do after we miss that selection of AJ Dillon is just load up at running back as much as possible. I don't think a second tight end is necessary. If I did go with a second tight end, it would be Hunter Henry or Dawson Knox, no doubt whatsoever. But I think Goddard's going to have a great year. So looking at our bench running backs, I do think that we need more help at that position than an additional tight end, right? In week 7, we could just stream someone. I don't think we need an additional quarterback behind Joe Burrow. In week 10, we'll stream someone as well. So if you think about it, right, the top 20 running backs going into fantasy last season, all of them, actually the top 25, all of them had an injury or missed 2 games except for Jonathan Taylor last year. So when you start to build a team like this that looks a little bit thinner at running back, don't forget that last year we had a lot of volatility, a lot of injuries at the position, a lot of guys who won't even be drafted this coming fantasy season step up to the plate and be solid fantasy players for 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks throughout the season. Just really look at how many running backs got hurt last season, how much missed time. It is crazy. So I don't necessarily get worried if I have more receiver value and good mid-round QB and tight end value before getting running back value early, because I'm a little bit worried at how the position is going to shape out this year. So I'll go Tyler Boyd here, get another receiver. That will absolutely do it at the wide receiver position. Dawson Knox is kind of intriguing here, but there's just no reason for us to necessarily get a second tight end. I mean, it would be kind of interesting, don't get me wrong, but Dameon Pierce is my #1 target going into pick 123 overall. I mean, Dameon Pierce, I've been talking about him ever since the NFL draft, and I'm very happy that he really showed up in that first preseason game, because he is going to be the RB1 for the Houston Texans. If you guys are not aware, and I get it, guys, the Texans are not a sexy team on paper whatsoever, but bad football teams and bad offenses can still produce good fantasy players. I will be drafting Dameon Pierce in a lot of drafts this year. And at the end of the day, he is moving up in ADP and our subscriber mock drafts and in mock drafts in general after that nice preseason performance. I mean, he didn't do anything crazy, but he had a good average yards per carry, and he just looked good within that offense overall. So we'll go ahead and we'll select Pierce there. Then I think the most important thing for this team undoubtedly is getting another dart throw at running back. For me, it's probably Darrell Henderson. I like Tyler Algier. He's another rookie I've been talking about a lot since the draft. I think either are fine. options, I'd probably lean Henderson. I mean, we're already seeing issues pop up for Cam Akers throughout this offseason. Don't get me wrong, we're also seeing issues pop up for Darrell Henderson. But when you go back and look at how that team deployed their running backs last season, you know, Cam Akers was not the guy, and I get that he was hurt. Darrell Henderson wasn't necessarily the guy, and Sony Michel wasn't necessarily the guy. It was a carousel of all of those running backs, but there was a point early in the season where Darrell Henderson was absolutely the guy. So I'll go Henderson here. I don't mind Tyler Algier in that position as well. And I think we pieced together a really good team. We'll just pick the best available defense and kicker, and we'll call this thing a day. Taking a look at the roster, we got Burrow at quarterback, Goddard at tight end, Eckler, Swift, Mitchell, Penny, Pierce, and Henderson at running back. Still a good running back room overall, in my opinion. At receiver, we got CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Devonta Smith, and Tyler Boyd. I would be ecstatic with that receiver room going into a 10-team league this year, especially in full PPR. So we could pick a kicker for first or a defense. I don't really mind either way. We'll just go ahead and try and lock up some positional advantage at kicker, either Money Mac or Mac Gay or even Daniel Carlson. Those are probably the best 3 kickers available. I don't think you can really go wrong with choosing any of them. Let's go Daniel Carlson. That was your kicker number 1 on the season last year. I mean, naturally he's going to regress, but the offense did get better in the offseason. I mean, any of those kickers would have been fine. And, you know, with defense, you can always stream a defense. And I think there will be more defenses available at the end of this draft. So we'll just go ahead and we'll lock up our defense and we'll call this thing a day. All right, so there's plenty of defenses worth drafting here. There's plenty to make an argument for in terms of streaming, like the Browns, the Eagles, the Broncos. There's plenty of arguments to be made for the Chargers or Rams on the season, even the Patriots. It doesn't really matter to me in terms of this mock draft, so we'll just go with the Rams. You add Bobby Wagner. Should be a fun defense. And that'll finish out the team. So if you guys did enjoy today's content, be sure to hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Would love to have you guys in one of our future subscriber mock drafts, and feel free to drop any comments down below pertaining to the 2022 fantasy football season, as well as any mock draft requests you guys may have. Here's a final look at the team: Austin Eckler, CeeDee Lamb, DeAndre Swift, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Elijah Mitchell, Darnell Mooney, Devonta Smith, Joe Burrow, Dallas Goedert, Rashad Penny, Tyler Boyd, Damian Pierce, Darrell Henderson, Daniel Carlson, and the Rams defense. I think this is a great roster. A little bit more emphasis on the wide receiver position, which I don't mind in full PPR leagues, especially since those 2 starting running backs, Eckler and Swift, are PPR style running backs who catch the football. I think Elijah Mitchell, Rashad Penny, Damian Pierce, and Darrell Henderson, although it looks a little bit scary on paper maybe, is a fine bench running back room. The wide receivers I think are absolutely stacked. CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, Tyler Boyd. I mean, I think overall you've got a ton of very good players in a full PPR style format. Then that really nice ceiling that Mike Williams brings as well. I'm perfectly happy with Joe Burrow as my QB1 and perfectly happy with Dallas Goedert as my tight end 1 in terms of the value where we drafted him. Daniel Carlson and the Rams defense perfectly fine as well. So I think that's a great roster overall, and that'll do for today's video. And with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.